Brisbane has just come off the back of one of its most incredible years in the last decade, growing by over 12.1% in 2024. Now, you may be wondering, like us, if there's any gas left in the tank and what might be in store for Brisbane in 2025, which is why we're super excited to bring you what some of Australia's leading analysts and advisors are predicting for the Brizzy market in the coming 12 months.
Now, one of our favorite things to do every single year is to read the SQM Boom Bust report, which predicts where property prices could head in every single capital city around Australia. Now, they believe that Brisbane is going to go nuts again in 2025, with the worst case expectations being a growth rate of 4%, but best case scenario seeing a 16% growth year in 2025. And this is backed up by CoreLogic, where they actually believe that Brisbane is going to continue through this growth cycle and be one of Australia's top performing markets next year.
Now, I was recently reading an article by the Australian Financial Review, and they were suggesting that the average property in Brisbane worth $700K, and this was about a year ago, could be worth somewhere between $900K and $1.2 million by the 2032 Olympic Games.
But not everyone is as hot on the Brisbane market in 2025. The Courier Mail expects Brisbane property prices to rise by a modest 2 to potentially 5% next year, whereas Domain was definitely more bullish at about a 5 to 7% growth rate in Brisbane for 2025. And while it's nice to see that some of these predictions are coming out for 2025 look really positive for Brisbane, I'm more concerned about what could potentially occur between now and the Olympic Games in 2032. And if we look back to the 2000 Olympic Games in Sydney, it had such a positive impact on the property market down there, where we saw property prices go up 97% between 1997 and 2003. And as we know, history does have a funny way of repeating itself, which is why I think AFR came out a couple of years ago indicating that they believe that the Brisbane median house price could be $1.4 million by 2032. Now, it's currently sitting at around $975,000. So that's a huge increase in the median house price over the next 7 years.
And you know, while those averages might scare people like me, like thinking that the average house price is $970K, you've got to remember that that's putting every single property in the city in the bucket. So all of the waterfront properties, the beachside properties, the inner city properties that have absolutely exploded. And what I love about Brizzy is it really isn't one city anymore. There's a percentage of the market, like the suburbs within 10Ks of the city and right on the beach, that have sort of doubled or tripled in the last 10 years. And then there's these pockets within sort of 20 to 30Ks of the city, the sort of middle ring pockets that are still super affordable, where we're buying townhouses and houses in that sort of $550,000 through to $750,000 range. So there's incredible value in Brisbane if you know where to look. And me and Simon actually recently looked at about 423 suburbs in Brisbane across 15 key performance indicators, and we found about 40 to 50 suburbs that look phenomenal in 2025.
Now, the reason that's so important is because Brisbane's a massive capital city. It's the third largest capital city in Australia. There's over 2.5 million people that live in the greater Brisbane region right now. But what's absolutely mind-blowing is between now and 2050, they expect the population of Southeast Queensland to get to 5.9 million people. Now, this is a ridiculous boom in population in Southeast Queensland, and all of these people are going to need a place to live, and obviously there is not enough properties being built at the moment to supply the level of demand that's coming into this region. So it gets me super excited about the long-term potential of this pocket of Australia.
Now, I was recently reading another article which was super interesting. It kind of reminded me of some of the Trump language around the golden age of America. The article was titled "The Golden Age of Infrastructure for Brisbane," and they're expecting something like $100 billion worth of infrastructure to come into Southeast Queensland, both publicly and privately, in the next 8 years. So some of the big dogs in the Queensland government are sort of bringing almost 40 to 50 years worth of infrastructure into the next 8 years, because they know if they spend all of this money now, then some of the money that comes in off the result of the Olympic Games are going to pay it back much faster than they normally would. And you can see projects like the $5 billion rail upgrade from Brisbane to the Sunshine Coast, for example, which is an absolute game changer, as well as everywhere you look online, article after article of another development, the metro line underneath the city, and all of the cool stuff that's going on at the moment. It's super exciting. I was actually catching up with a mate of mine that I grew up with in Sydney He's been working all over Australia, managing some of the biggest plumbing related jobs in Australia. So the hospitals, the unis, the schools, and the big high profile, high res residential apartments around Australia. And he said that his entire company is basically moving the workforce up to Brisbane over the next few years. They're calling out everybody that's working for them and worked for them in the past, because this is the next big hotspot. Now, because of this massive amounts of infrastructure projects coming online and not enough people to supply all of the jobs, we've got wages going ballistic up here at the moment. And I think I saw an article in the Sydney Morning Herald and the Financial Review recently where they're talking about wages in Brisbane for tradespeople and engineers having the highest hourly rates out of any of those people in Australia now, which is exciting because we know where the infrastructure goes, the population flows, and the higher income earners live, blows up house prices. And that's probably why we're seeing such strong predictions, not just for the next sort of 12 months, but over the next 8 years and then longer term as well.
Now, as Ben mentioned a little earlier, we know that Brisbane has had an incredible growth run over the last 5 years. And in some areas, there's been some ridiculous capital growth rates, but there is some absolute hidden gems in Brisbane at the moment. And if we take that information that was produced from Homely, where they looked at property prices in Brisbane between 1970 and 2016, and if you add up the capital growth rates, then divide it by 46 years, Brisbane saw a 9.7% capital growth rate over that period of time. So in Brisbane, when we're looking at some of these suburbs, they've done significantly lower than that 9.7% capital growth rate. It looks like 2025 shaping up to be an incredible year, but once again, it's about taking it to the long term, thinking about the next 10 or 20 years, which is where I get even more excited about Southeast Queensland.
G'day guys, my name's Ben and I'm the director here at Pumped on Property, and I just want to say a massive thank you for watching our content today. Now, if you're thinking about buying an investment property in the next 3 to 12 months, then the team and I would love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. In that session, we can talk about exactly where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term, and we can deeply educate you on the Australian market. And then you can take that information and go and absolutely smash it on your own, or potentially become one of the small number of clients that we work with each week. To book your session, all you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com and click that book your free strategy session button. But either way, we wish you all the best on your journey as an investor to financial freedom.